Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Math and STEM, where our mission is to reach out to as many professionals, aspiring professionals, students, whatever you name it. We try to reach out to them, who essentially support the initiative of bringing more women and young girls into the STEM field. So, with that being said, as always, feel free to open up the description or transcript to better follow along, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, and thank you so much for coming to this call today and talking with me. Just to sort of start off, do you mind briefly introducing yourself as well as sort of walking us through your journey to get you where you are today?
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. So I'm Nichole Austion. I currently serve as the Vice President of Public Affairs for an organization called the National Math and Science Initiative. And we are a STEM teacher professional development organization. We train STEM teachers all over the nation on content and pedagogy in the math and sciences. And I come to the National Math and Science Initiative after 20 years as a business to business marketer, where I worked primarily with technology firms, including firms that do cybersecurity, intelligent lighting, data warehousing, and distributed travel. I am also a woman in STEM. I hold a bachelor's degree in computer science, computer systems engineering, excuse me, from Howard University. And then I have my MBA from the University of Texas, where I focused in on marketing technology.
Oh, wow. I was just wondering, as somebody who works in public affairs or as the vice president of public affairs at the National Math and Science Initiative, I was just wondering what sort of challenges do you guys face when it comes to closing opportunity gaps in math and science?
So we are really focused in on those teachers. And one of the things that we provide is the content to teachers. A lot of people don't understand that teachers can come to almost any subject without having really studied that particular subject. And that really holds true in the math and sciences as well. So, one of the hurdles that we really focus on overcoming is getting teachers the right content education in terms of their professional development. And then once they understand the content, then they need to know how to teach that content. And that's the pedagogy part of it. So our challenges are really around making sure that those teachers understand that, but then we broaden our focus to help districts understand how to build a STEM culture, right? District leaders need to understand what some of the barriers are for women in STEM, for underrepresented groups in STEM. There are a lot of cultural barriers that are built into our historic system that really don't encourage women and minority students to pursue the STEM fields. And even when they get into the STEM fields, there are barriers. But we really want to focus in on taking a look at each district and subsequently the school, providing them with a roadmap to become STEM literate. And we have our definition of that. And we also want to make sure that those teachers get the confidence they need in content and pedagogy because there's so many other things that teachers have to deal with in the classroom management. There's a lot of emphasis nowadays on mental health. So they have to deal with a lot of stuff. So if you've got content and pedagogy solid in your mind and you understand how to teach that subject, you can deal with some of the other things, but still get those lessons across to all of your students.
Sounds good. And I was just personally curious, since you guys are a national organization, whether or not your content or support varies, like depending on the school or the area, and how exactly you go about like sort of adjusting your curriculum or your sort of initiative and support depending on where you're helping out.
So we are in about 47 of the 50 states. So we go all over. And we are really interested in partnering with a district or a school. So we really want to talk to those administrators to understand what challenges they're facing. So our program can look, even though our services are pretty standard, a program that a school or a district adopts can be tailored for that particular school. So, for example, we talked to one state in the South who was interested in our services. They had 5 schools in the southern part of their state that were about to be overtaken by the state. meaning the local control was going to come from the city or the county and it was going to go back up into the state. They wanted us to work with those schools, but they also had schools in the northern part of their state that were really ready to delve into building a more STEM literate culture. So it really depends on where the school district is and what they're looking for. What we want to focus in on is really students that are furthest from opportunity. Those students who are historically marginalized, whether that's by gender, race, ethnicity, or even students who are poverty affected. We want to bring quality STEM education into the schools and districts where students may not have that. And we do that primarily by partnering with those states and also training those teachers.
Sounds amazing. I was also just wondering if you had any particularly memorable or rewarding experience during your time at being the Vice President of Public Affairs.
Let's see, a rewarding experience. Well, I love going to our summer content workshops because those are places where we have anywhere from 500 to 800 teachers over the course of 3 to 3.5 days. And we are training those teachers with our expert coach core. And it's so much fun to see the teachers everywhere from third grade up into 12th grade, everything from standard coursework into AP coursework, getting out into the hallways and being the student and really changing places. You know, their coach is the teacher and they are the student. Or you have a group of teachers who are playing the teacher and a group of teachers who are playing the student. I've seen teachers, have lessons where they drop a Barbie doll down on a bungee cord, where they are trying to get a race car across a parking garage, where they're measuring different things for a lesson as students. And it's fun to watch them engage in those activities and recognize, oh, wait a minute, the directions may not be as clear. Now, do I need to leave these parts out of the direction, or are my students going to be able to use that critical thinking skill because that part of the direction isn't there? So, really getting deep into what they're teaching and how they're teaching it is fun to watch. And then I love, since I also run the marketing organization, I love to then film them and ask them what they think about the training. And their faces light up. And they really talk about the fact that normally professional development is what we call sit and get, right? They sit there and they get the information, but they like our training because they're active. They're doing things with the training in addition to getting instruction. They're actually putting those things into practice. So those are probably some of my most rewarding uh, things is to see the teachers, but I also like the fact that we are a data-driven organization and we measure how well our students with NIMSY teachers are actually performing or improving. So it's always fun to see that data come through that shows that we beat the national average on in terms of students who are students of color who perform well on an AP test. We beat the national average in terms of students who find that they have a deeper sense of STEM identity because they've had a NIMSY teacher. So both those elements, watching the teachers thrive, teachers and educators thrive in our training, and then also seeing that really proof is in the pudding data that we produce at the National Math and Science Initiative.
That sounds amazing. I was also just curious about how you guys as an organization try to navigate and balance the political, educational, as well as like economic landscape because it seems like a very complicated and very intricate thing to try to do.
Yes, we are. It is. It's very complicated and very intricate. So, in terms of policy, we really want to align with national initiatives that are looking at increasing the number of women and students of color in the STEM fields. So, today in the United States, we have, I think it's like 60% of women who are actually enrolled in college, which beats men. But we don't have the same number of women who are going into STEM fields. So we have some work to do. There's only 9% of African Americans who are STEM professionals. And I think it's something like 26% of Latino Americans. We have got to level these playing fields, right? So we do see that in our policy work, but we want to also emphasize not only just the workforce component, because that's super important, but we really want to emphasize the fact that gotta train the teachers. They are the front lines of our educational system. So if you don't provide high quality, proven professional development, you're not going to have high quality, proven teachers. It's a profession and we need to invest in it. So, from a policy standpoint, we want to make sure that we're talking to states about things like their math adoption, right? So, if they adopt a new math program, how then are you going to train those teachers across your state? Because you still have locally controlled schools. But how are you going to make sure that that training is uniform in quality so that those math standards can then yield greater performance by your students? So that's one of the ways that we navigate that. And then, of course, we try to work with states who are, building their infrastructure for their future STEM workforce to try and help them understand you're landing in a state in order to continue to build your business, but you need a qualified workforce. There's no better place to start getting a qualified workforce than to have quality trained STEM teachers.
Sounds good. I was also curious about your opinion of like STEM education in the future, maybe 5 years or a decade from now.
So I hope, first of all, that all students have access to quality STEM education because they have teachers who are well trained in content and pedagogy and teachers who understand culturally responsive education. Because as our country is diversifying, it is so important for teachers to understand where students are coming from culturally, right? Some cultures are ready, some cultures need help. You have to put the lessons in a framework that's going to attract that student based upon the culture in which they come from. I also want all students, even if you don't choose to be in a STEM field, to know that you can be in a STEM field. STEM is not a field that is hands off for anybody. Math is a language, just like Spanish, just like French. It is a language, and you can learn the language. Maybe you learn at a different pace or a different speed, but math is a language, and you can learn that language and it's necessary for your life, right? You got to balance a checkbook. Well, maybe not a checkbook, but you have to balance your account, right? You have to understand what your investments are doing. You have to purchase a home. You have to purchase a car. That's all math. And so we have to understand that as a language. And I want all students across the United States to understand that nobody is excluded in STEM. You can be a STEM person if you choose to be. It is not off limits for anyone.
Sounds great. I was just wondering, sort of on the same note, if you had any last words for the audience.
My last words are this is a fantastic platform that Angelina has put up, and I'm so happy to be here. And if you have any interest in the STEM fields, find yourself a mentor. Find yourself people who are in fields. Explore them. If you don't know what the fields are, make sure you explore your fields. If you have a favorite STEM teacher, talk to that teacher about what careers could be in that field. If you have barriers, go to your administrator. Tell them that you have barriers to getting a quality STEM education. And make sure that you're always looking for opportunities, if you're interested in STEM, to pursue that as a career and never think it's off limits for you, no matter what anybody says to you.
Thank you. That was absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you for having me.